so we didn't get a video out for yesterday. I apologize. I got home, of course, the hydraulics on my old tractor out there. When it's really cold out, I have to do laps around the field to get everything heated up enough to where I can even pick a bale up. Some days it takes longer than others. I've got to change the fluid. I got to change the fluid in that this spring. That usually takes care of that issue, but I've had enough of winter and I've had enough of cold. I'm not sitting out there with the wind blowing up my backside just so we can do that. But anyway, as I'm sure many of you find in your own projects, you get doing one project and then one thing leads to the next, to the next, to the next because something happens and you got to get something fixed or just whatever. So we started out building a planer stand, which is soon to be finished, by the way. In the course of building the planer stand, my beautiful trusty firewood mallet decided to blow apart. So we started on a nice maple mallet, a couple of them. And in order to do that, the mortising press came out here. And then as I'm sitting there, I'm cutting my tendons by hand, not getting my shoulders exactly where I want them. And I'm getting frustrated, you know, as I have an easier time with the bigger joinery by hand than the smaller stuff. Smaller stuff is so much harder to do. So I'm thinking to myself, I says, well, shit, self, you have a nice stack of dado blades. You have a table saw that'll take dado blades. Why don't you just bite the bullet, get the damn thing out here, and get after it? So that's what we're up to tonight. We're going to get the table saw up here. I've already cleaned it out pretty well. It was messy. We have to shine the top up, stuff like that. But so what I did last night after fighting the tractor and throwing rocks at cute kittens to make myself feel better, I didn't really do that. Just an expression, people, just an expression. But after we got all that, and after all the bitching and pissing and moaning was over and the whining and the crying, I went into the Pit of Dispair. I took my Delta. I've got a 10-inch Delta Contractor table saw out there. You guys have seen in some of the really old videos. So I decided, you know what? Let's take it apart. Let's get it out to the new shop, find it a home, get it cleaned up, and start using it because it's a much nicer table saw than that Craftsman over there. That Craftsman works really well. There's nothing wrong with it, but sometimes a heavier table saw that allows you to do more options. A big thing that bothers me on that Craftsman, it doesn't have any slots for a miter gauge. It's one of those ones, it was like a concept saw that Craftsman was working on, it must be, and one side of the table slides. Well, the miter gauge that they made for that thing was garbage. It was pretty much plastic and really thin aluminum. It was junk. It broke within a few months of using it heavy. So I've never really been able to do miter cuts on that table saw. Couldn't even make a miter sled for a table saw sled for it. So anyway, so I want to get something in here that's going to help us get these big projects done a lot faster, a lot easier, and allow me to make better use of my time. So that's what we're going to work on tonight. And before we get going, I know we're just kind of done here. So before we get going, there's a build going on you guys might like. He's actually done with it now. Over at Lasting Build, he just got done building a gorgeous treadle lathe. And for those of you who don't know what a treadle lathe is, it uses a foot pedal instead of an electric motor to turn it. It's got wooden tailstock, all that good stuff. They're really neat. If you go to Colonial Williamsburg or you look up any of their videos online, that's what they still use over there. So he just got done building one, and I'm going to put a link to the video in the description below. You guys might really enjoy that one. He does really nice work. So anyway, without further ado, we're going to get the table saw up here. We're going to start getting it put together, and then we've got to clean the top, which I don't know if we'll get it all done tonight, as always, but we're going to try. So stay tuned. I'll catch you on the other side of it. Okay, so down here you have 2 Allen screws right there. That is how you adjust the travel on that for your tilt. And let's make sure that we're good and square on this table. And we're off just a little bit. Of course, that is a piss poor way of telling square right there, but according to the larger square, we're off, just a tiny bit. So what I want to do is I want to back this guy out just a little bit until, of course I have no idea what size that is because I can't see in there. Maybe one bigger. There we go. It's perfect on that side. I don't really, that's a little goofy right there. Perfect here. Well, we're pretty good there. Okay. All I do once I get that, I just turn that down until I get a little tension on it. So basically what I'm looking for, when I have this thing at full stop, I want to make sure I'm good and square. Just saves you a lot of time, and that's an adjustment you should check once in a while, just to make sure, because that screw, you know, vibration with the saw and whatnot, that screw can move. So on this guy right here, that's for your 45 degree. That's actually pretty good. We'll check it with a speed square also. Although that's probably a little more accurate, just doesn't have a lot of bearing surface. That's pretty damn good. Yeah, the cord is actually still in really good shape on this. You guys believe that in this shop? Well, I guess we could put the fence on it. Well, did we do everything? I think we have one more thing left to do. Gotta put the motor on. A little something to keep in mind. Let's see if we got you in the camera. And we do. This pulley down here, the sheave on this motor, when you feel down inside these grooves, it should be smooth. If you feel any ridges or lines or anything like that, time to replace it. Now if you guys have a bad belt on these, I'm sure they're pretty easy to find, probably through Delta still, I would imagine. This one I believe is original. Still has a, well, yeah, I'm pretty sure it's original. So you want to kind of flex it a little bit, make sure you don't have any cracking. You're looking for the spining or the backing of this belt. You want to make sure it's not separating from it at all. So this is a V belt, and this would be an A belt size. It is worn down a little bit on the sides. You can kind of see where the strings or the backing is, but it's not too bad. With these, they're self-tensioning. I mean, the weight of the motor just leans on it, and that's how they tension. And that's how you get them off too. Once in a while, it's not a bad idea just to take it off, flip it so the belt wears evenly. Should do that. If you're using it a lot, should do it a couple times a year. You want to check the pulley on the trunnion, make sure that's good. And that all looks good. And these are really easy to change, nothing to them. There we go. Nice and free, we can put the guard on it. All right, there she is, folks. That is our table saw rescued from the Pit of Despair. Cleaned up, a hell of a lot cleaner than it was when it came up here. But yeah, ready for use. Got to adjust this down a little bit. If you get any rocking in that plate right there, there's Allen-headed screws in there you can adjust that with. You don't want that rocking and vibrating on you. Now these Delta Contractor saws, they're kind of a mid-range saw. Even for their time, they were kind of a mid-range saw. Your next step up from this would be like a Uni-Saw or something like that. I wish the outfeed was a little bit wider on it, but we're going to fix that with a table anyway. But to be honest with you, this thing does everything I need it to do. There is some vibration. It's not terrible, but you can't balance a nickel on this like I've seen some on YouTube do, which is pretty amazing. Someday we may upgrade to a fancier table saw, but you know what? I've had this one for a long time. I've used this thing a lot. It works just fine for what I need. So anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this one. I'll see you on the next one.